taken. That's into Clive Murphy. Yes, it's in. Clive Murphy.
We're in the dying minute of the game now. Here on Duff, Brian Mullins out to the wing. And this is Ray Hazley across in front of the goal. The crowd from Cork have gathered with their blue
This information video production on the skills of Gaelic football was undertaken by Cuiste Ilona na Moon, a subcommittee of Call in the Moon, because of a firm belief that coaching has a major part to play if the national games are to grow in popularity and in quality. Success in mastering skills depends on correct coaching procedures and techniques applied by coaches at all levels of the game. In this film, each skill is analysed and the activities involved in it are narrated so that coaches have a visual aid to help them inform, educate and encourage young players to perfect their skills to maximum ability. Many great players of the past achieved success without coaching as it is known today. But they too watched, listened and learned from other good players, and using their knowledge supplemented by hard work, they perfected their own styles. They were self-coached. Their techniques have influenced modern coaches. The road to success in Gaelic football begins in the training field by learning the skills correctly. Some of the modern inter-county stars will confirm this statement during the course of interviews which they kindly and readily gave for the benefit of young players. There has been a demand in coaching courses held over the last 2 years for a video presentation of the kind we have produced. We are happy to be able to respond to this need. Eugene McGee is the current coach of Offaly, the All-Ireland champions. Mick O'Dwyer is coach of a great Kerry team, winners of the All-Ireland Championships in 78, 79, 80 and 81. Eamon Ryan is coach to the present Cork team, who are 1983 Munster champions. This is what these men think of coaching.
To me, coaching is what the game is all about. Whatever we have got in Offaly in the last 5 years, success or otherwise, it has come exclusively from coaching. It hasn't come because we had a few geniuses of players like Matt Connor or Martin Furlong. They were very important, all right, but basically we have been a success because of our coaching. I believe coaching is an absolute necessity for young players, particularly for two reasons. It's the only guaranteed way of improving the skill level of young players is through coaching. They cannot do so by accident. They get little or no coaching in national schools in a lot of cases, so they have to be coached by the GA people themselves. Secondly, players enjoy being coached, and probably that's the most important thing of all. This is an age of sophistication in sport. Children see the highest quality sport on television. They only see the best on television. They don't see the worst. They see the very, very best from all over the world. They feel, therefore, that Gaelic football should receive the same attention as regards coaching and training as all the other sports do. Much more important, youngsters like being coached because they can see themselves improving. If a player is very poor at kicking the ball in Gaelic football, it can be very embarrassing for him. People laugh at him, his teammates laugh at him. If he can be taken aside and coached over a period of 10 or 12 coaching sessions, he'll improve dramatically, and therefore he'll enjoy his game. He won't be embarrassed anymore, and he'll be more willing to get interested in the game. So I feel that unless we coach from the very formative years, we will be in trouble with Gaelic football. And I think the low standard of Gaelic football in a lot of clubs and counties at the moment is a direct result of inadequate coaching in about 10 years ago, over the last 10 years. Thankfully we're awakening now to the need of coaching, and this film is the first serious attempt to put on a videotape what coaching is all about, and I hope it's a great success. It's long overdue, and I'm delighted to see it happening.
Centre half forward, Richie Connor. Matt Connor.
Well, quite a lot of people have asked me about coaching and training of teams. I think it's more important now than ever before that coaching be introduced to our games. It applies to all other games like rugby and soccer, and I suppose if you want to improve any game, you must encourage the young fellas, especially, to work on the basic skills of any game. And the basic skills in our game, I think, are catching and kicking. That's a well-known fact. And a lot of people think today that our kicking is not as good as it used to be in former years, and the same applies to our fielding. Well, I suppose we have neglected it to a degree over the years. We went in a lot for the hand pass, and we play more of a combined game now than ever before. And I suppose that's the reason why fielding and kicking have deteriorated. But I would suggest from here in that we should pay more emphasis to fielding and kicking in our game.
John Egan gets the pass. Mike Sheehy over to Sean Walsh. It is.
Sometimes when the word coaching is mentioned, it has an off-putting effect on people because they imagine that coaching is really something for top-class inter-county players. But this film which we're now showing is really intended for ordinary club players and juveniles, so that they can learn and pick up the basic, what I would call the basic tools of the game. Things like fetching, kicking, lifting, solo running are all shown here by present-day stars. And from my own experience, with club and juvenile players, I know that coaching is vital because it's only through persevering and staying at learning the skills that players become adept at them. The satisfaction of mastering a skill means that a young lad or a club player can enjoy his game more and eventually contribute more to his team effort. So my advice would be watch the stars in action on this film. They're all current inter-county players. Listen to your own coach, do what he tells you, and strive for perfection at all times.
Up along the wing, Dennis Allen going after the ball. Dennis Allen with the ball. A goal! A goal by Dennis Allen!
Gaelic football is made up of many basic, spectacular skills. No player can reach his full potential unless he has first of all mastered these basic skills. During the video, we have given demonstrations of these skills together with suggested practices by which they can be practiced. These are only suggested practices, as with experience, the coach may develop his own practices. Very good.
A skill may be coached by providing the player with the perfect image of what is required, with a good demonstration of the skill. This may be done by the coach or provided by one of the players. After a description of each technique, a series of practices are used. These must be realistic and as near as possible to the game situation. They must be introduced so that the player, when practicing the technique, will experience a gradual increase in difficulty. Here we see young players practicing without opposition. But practices without opposition are of limited value, though nevertheless help to groove the movement pattern of the technique before placing it in a competitive situation. Now here, slight opposition is introduced. Opposition is essential in order that the practices be as near as possible to the game situation. These practices should at all times be carried out with a sense of urgency, otherwise the element of realism is lost. With skill improvement, the practices may be made more competitive, more realistic and more difficult, thus getting as near as possible to the game situation. Here we see 4 versus 4. Team A keeping the ball away from Team B by means of the fisted pass. The newly acquired skill is now emphasized in a small-sided conditioned game. Conditioned means placing emphasis on one skill in the small-sided game. Here, the young players are playing a game where the only means of passing is by means of the fisted pass only, with no kicking allowed. And this continues until the coach is satisfied with progress. Here, the player should be able to perform the fisted pass then consistently well under any circumstances. The coach makes use of flags or bollards, marking areas in a grid formation in which to practice the skills. Each group of players is allocated a specific area in which to practice the skill. This system simplifies the organization of large numbers into smaller working groups, thus ensuring maximum activity by all. The coach gets players in a semicircle around him for the demonstration of the skill. These should be as brief as possible, illustrating 1 or at most 2 points.
Okay lads, the skill we're going to do today is the fisted pass. Now it's the most common pass used in Gaelic football, so it's important that we get it very well. Could anybody tell me, when do we pass in Gaelic football?
When another person is in a better position.
Right.
Yeah.
You only pass when the other person to whom you're passing is in a better position. You don't pass for the sake of passing. Now, you must also make yourself available for the pass. So you must run into the space. Now, the technique itself, right, you must hold the ball on the palm of the hand and your hand must be extended. The elbow mustn't be bent, hand extended. Now, your fist is closed like that with the thumb coming over the first finger, just like that. Now, hit the center of the ball with the fist and follow through in that direction now. The pass must be chest height. So just emphasize the point again. That's good, Sean. Fist closed elbow extended, hit the center of the ball with a closed fist and follow through in that direction. Chest high. Go on, lads. You all go back to your own grids and practice, first of all, without opposition. Okay, get going.
Having demonstrated the technique to the whole group, the various groups go immediately to their allocated areas to practice. This prevents the different groups then from intermingling and the session possibly losing its effectiveness. While the groups are practicing, the coach moves from area to area, observing and correcting any deficiencies in technique. The coach should concentrate on one skill per session.
Coming inside. Takes a lobber in towards the goal back, but Charlie Nelligan isn't fooled by those kind of dropping balls, and it's out to 14 inch. No dilly-dallying back in the Kerry defence. They're getting rid of that.
Okay, Paddy. Very good. Very good.
Okay.
The ball is first controlled with both hands and then released. It is dropped towards the laced part of the boot. Kicked through the middle to rise at an angle of about 45 degrees. Eyes of the kicker on the ball all the time, head down when the ball is gone. The leg follows through after making contact with the ball. This shot shows a group of young players practicing the skill, the punt kick. They are in pairs in a grid about 20 yards apart. Here there is no opposition. Kicking is with both feet. When both feet or both hands can be used in performing a skill, the coach should see to it that each player is able to use either foot or either hand to execute the movements required. Opposition is now introduced, and in doing so, the practice becomes more realistic, that is, more like a game situation. Each practice should have an achievable target or objective, thus ensuring interest, enjoyment, and purpose in practices. In this practice, players are endeavouring to score points by means of the punt kick. Their partners return the ball promptly. Each player, on scoring, moves to a position between the next two markers or bollards. The player who scores most points within a specified time is the winner. All the players get the opportunity to shoot for scores. And notice that this practice provides the player with the chance of scoring from different angles in front of goal. The natural progression is to include this skill and all other skills in their turn in a game situation where players are conditioned to use the punt kick only.
In towards the goal mouth. Liam Connor. Ball knocked away from him. Bomber Liston. Pat Spillane. Pat takes a shot in his first kick of the game. It's over the bar. A point for Pat Spillane and a point for Kerry.
Ready? Okay. There you go.
Pat Spillane here is moving parallel to his target. The ball is held with both hands. He leans slightly towards the target, the kicking leg swings across the body, kicking through the ball, eyes on the ball at all times, and the leg followed through after contact.
My advice for any youngster who wishes to reach the top in Gaelic football are 1. Practice the technique of each skill. 2. Train as hard and as often as you can. And 3. Enjoy that practice.
Away you go.
In this picture, we see young players practicing the hook kick. The pattern followed is very similar to that of the punt kick. Here, limited opposition is introduced, putting the kicker under slight pressure in the performance of his movements. Techniques should be practiced from about a half to 3/4 speed until the technique is mastered. The punt kick and the hook kick, of course, are the most common ways of kicking the ball off the hands in Gaelic football.
Coming back, coming right through. Ger Power now to Tommy Doyle. He's way on his own. The shot from Tommy. It was the number 2, Tom Frieden. What a judicious interception it was. Tom has felt it, of course, but it saved Cork a very tricky situation. This is Declan Barron. Oh, he's floated that in to no Cork man. Tim Kennelly got it away. John Egan now.
Very good. Excellent, Tommy.
The ball is held firmly in both hands and then dropped to the ground. The kicking leg makes contact with the ball at the same time as it touches the ground, ideally, or even a moment after it does so. The kicking leg is extended and follows through after contact. The kicking action begins before the ball makes contact with the ground. And eyes on the ball at all times. Practices may follow a pattern like those used for the punt kick. This form of kicking is not popular in today's game, as there is a greater danger of losing possession as a result of it, rather than with the punt or hook kick. A level surface and firm underfoot conditions are required in order to perform the skill well.
Wandering in centre field, and John O'Keefe is wandering after him. And up they go for that.
Okay, you can do the first one, sir.
Very good, Mikey. Fantastic.
No, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
No.
Mikey Sheehy here is faced away from his intended target. He leans backwards and the kicking leg makes contact with the ball at chest height. The ball travels over head and shoulder. Toes turned up or curled up when kicking. As is usually the case, the first practice here is without opposition. Opposition is now introduced. The player in the middle runs to put the kicker under pressure, and each player has a turn in the middle position. While this, like the drop kick, is not a common feature of the modern game, young players do enjoy practicing it. The accomplished player, of course, is the one who is able to perform all skills well. And Porrick Dunn, who else won that one in the air again for Offaly?
Yes. All right.
Porrick Dunn here positions himself directly under the downward flight of the ball, with Tomás Conor eyes on the ball at all times. Arms are outstretched and contact made with the ball at the highest point of the jump. The fingers of the hand are spread out and the thumbs are behind the ball. For when the ball is travelling fast against the fetcher, the whole of both palms are against the flight. The player springs off one or both feet after crouching slightly. Having caught the ball, it is brought down immediately into the chest, and this reduces the risk of being dispossessed by an opponent's tap. While kicking is the supreme skill, the high catch is one of the showpieces of Gaelic football. The first practices are easy in order to build up confidence, and so the players throw the football to each other. It is easily fielded without opposition. Kicking makes the practice more realistic, and the coach should correct any faults in catching techniques. By introducing opposition, the skill is executed in a situation similar to a real game, where the player has to outfield his opponent. In allocating players to different groups, it is important to select them according to height and ability, as they will be competing against each other, and it is vital for each player's confidence that he experiences a certain amount of success. Confidence is really only achieved when the player is adept in the movements that constitute a skill, and when he is aware of his own ability to perform it well. Ideally, with the overhead catch, the ball must be taken at full arm's length.
One and into an open space. Got back for it with Jimmy Deanahan. Very nicely fielded. And
Kerry in trouble. Charlie Nelligan gets them out of it. And it's got away by Ger Lynch. Christy Ryan again. That's the fourth time in succession he's put Cork on the attack.
The whole body of the player, Jimmy Deanahan, is behind the ball. Eyes once again on the ball at all times. The elbows well tucked into his sides. The ball is channeled into the stomach by the hands and forearms. The impact of the ball is absorbed by a slight give in the body, otherwise the ball will bounce off the chest. The hands and forearms hold the ball firmly to the chest.
Well, from my experience as a PE teacher and a coach to numerous underage teams in my parish, I always emphasise the importance of skill development. I consider that skills are the principal thing in any game, and for young people to become good at games, I think it's vital that they should master the skills first. In the PE classes at school, I continuously emphasise to the pupils that just the same as they learn how to write letters, make joints in carpentry, weld in metalwork, that it is just as vital to become good at a game that they should master the skills first. Now, in Gaelic football, we have many skills, and that's why I think that it is important that if you want to become good at Gaelic football, that you must master all these skills first before you can really go out and enjoy the game of Gaelic football.
And now, when we practice these skills, we can follow the same sequence without opposition and with opposition as in the overhead catch.
Saying the captain holding it well, Michael Green, well saved from John Egan.
The whole body of this player, goalkeeper Michael Creedon, is behind the ball. The player's eyes, as we say so often, on the ball at all times. The player may move forward and reach downwards with both hands under the ball. Elbows close to the sides and channel the ball towards the stomach. To secure a more stable position, the player may go down on one knee. Goalkeepers, as we so often see, usually take up this position.
That's good. That's good. Very good. Now you're doing it very well. Down on one knee, Peter. Let on you're in the game and you're just a low ball coming in and you're running out for it. That's it. Down for it. That's it. You're really in a game.
Since catching is so important for gaining possession, especially high catching, any exercise that strengthens the fingers and arms is useful. Here are a few examples, and ones from which young lads in particular derive enjoyment. Bouncing the ball with one hand develops flexibility and strength in wrist and fingers, develops coordination of hand and eye. It accustoms the hand to the feel of the ball, and it improves general expertise with the hand. Bouncing with both hands, and notice the grip, the finger spread and thumbs against the ball, has the same objective, but adds that extra realism of handling the ball with both hands. One player holds the ball firmly here, and his partner attempts to hit it out from his grasp. This strengthens the fingers, the forearm and the upper arm of the holder, and it also improves strength of fingers and fist of striker. Both players, in fact, benefit from this practice. Players should alternate and use the right and left hand for the striking action. This is a simple and easy practice that a player can do by himself. He squeezes a rubber ball in either hand, and this improves the strength of fingers and forearm, areas that are vital for effective catching. Catching the ball with one hand enables the player to position his hand properly against the oncoming ball, and by putting pressure on the one hand helps develop strength in it, and it also improves the controlling technique. This practice may be particularly suitable for school teams who have such equipment available. As medicine balls are much heavier than footballs, they increase the strength of muscles in the hands, the arms and the chest. They can be usefully employed for high, chest and low catches. Young lads in particular enjoy this practice. Now the holding shot. Notice how the weight of the medicine ball conditions players to spread the fingers and place the thumbs against the flight of the ball, actions which are essential for high fetching.
Scoring position. Ger Power there to help, under a bit of pressure, and he does well to get it to Ogie Moran. Ogie Moran, a nice one to Ger Power, in front of the goal, to Owen Liston, a point.
That one over after almost 6 minutes of play. 1 point to no score in favour of Offaly. Up to Owen Liston on the 45-metre line, a dangerous dropping ball that John Egan, if he could get into it, could do trouble with.
The ball is held on the palm of the hand, supporting it. The ball is struck with the flat surface formed by the front of the fist with the thumb at the side. The striking arm is held straight and firm, but not rigid, and the striker strikes through the ball with the fist. The ball is aimed at the chest of the receiver. These young players, without opposition, are executing the fisted pass skill to improve technique. When the technique is performed often enough, the pattern of movement necessary to perform the skill becomes second nature to the player. He does not consciously advert to the actions involved. The actions become almost automatic. When the coach is satisfied with the technique, with the actions involved in executing the skill, it is imperative then to place it in a more competitive situation, as we have in this practice where 3 of the players, by means of the fisted pass, are endeavouring to keep the ball away from the player in the middle. Any one of the 3 players who gives an unsatisfactory pass takes up the middle position. This practice is commonly and amusingly known as piggy in the middle. In 4 versus 4, we have a much more competitive situation. The team in blue tries to make as many passes as possible before the ball hits the ground or is intercepted by the team in red. When the team in red gain possession, they attempt to make the greatest number of passes possible in a similar way. The team with the higher number of successful passes without the ball hitting the ground or being intercepted wins, and this of course keeps the competitive aspect present. Remembering the overall grid formation, if a player steps out of his grid, his team is then deemed to have lost possession. Where only one grid appears in practices, it must be assumed that in similar grids, other players are performing the same activities.
Getting it, and now a hand passing movement, and this is Michael Carr. And Carr takes a kick that hits the upright. Goal!
Boyle had gone up to support. This is Owen Liston using his strength to Dennis Moran. Dennis Moran taking the point. He took for a moment of the goal, but he was happy with the point.
Very good. One more on that though. Grand, thanks very much.
The ball is held on the palm of the hand, supporting it. The ball is then struck with open palm and fingers or with the fingers of the supporting hand. There must be a striking action. Otherwise, it will be deemed a throw. The ball may be tossed up by the supporting hand before being struck with the other hand. The pass is aimed chest high to the receiver. This pass is much faster than the punched pass, but it is, however, much more liable to be whistled up by the referee if there is any doubt about the striking action. In this practice, the players are passing to one another without opposition. Observe that the two players nearest camera are performing the skill correctly. In contrast, the player in the centre left is performing the skill incorrectly. Notice the upward and directing movement of his supporting hand, resulting in throwing rather than passing the ball. It is a vital part of a coach's function to detect and correct faulty actions or techniques in the execution of any skill. The coach here is observing, detecting and correcting faulty technique. In this practice, the player who passes then moves and interchanges places with the player who receives the ball. When a player is moving, proper execution of this passing technique becomes more difficult, as is evident from this series of pictures. A further development makes the practice more akin to a game situation. The player in possession palm passes to the player in the centre, moves on to receive the return pass, and then passes to the next player, who repeats the process. Each player is given the opportunity to take up the middle position.
Gone over the 35 minutes on my watch.
This is similar to the punt kick. As the foot comes into contact with the ball, the knee is slightly bent, the ankle is extended, and the ball is kicked at a low angle. The target of the pass is the chest of the receiver. As usual, the practice begins without opposition, with one player kick passing the ball to the other. Ideally, when coaching any skill, there should be a football available to every two players in order to have maximum practice in a given time. The more frequently a player handles football in any coaching session, the less danger there is of monotony or boredom. This picture here shows a variation in passing practices.
It's a good long one. It's knocked down by Kevin Kelly. That's Christy Ryan. Fitzgerald, he ran right onto it. This is Tyg Murphy, and that's gone wide. No, it's a point. Seamus Darby. Nicole and Sean Lowry is down there. Remember, he was full forward up to today, and it's Pat Fitzgerald facing Brendan Lowry. And Brendan taking the point.
Okay. Is it okay?
The kicker and the receiver usually approach the ball from opposite directions. The supporting leg of the kicker is placed to the side and behind the ball. The ball is struck on the undersurface by the instep stabbing the toe through the ground beneath the ball. The ankle is held firm but not extended. There is hardly any follow-through of the kicking leg. The target again is the chest of the receiver.
Run.
This is not a commonly performed skill in Gaelic football today, but there is no reason why it should not be. It's a relatively easy skill and well within the capabilities of young lads to execute it well. The first practice here is without opposition. The kicker passes to a moving player, and these players, incidentally, are all under 12 years of age. Limited opposition is introduced here.
Sean Lowry, Pat Fitzgerald. Tommy Drum. This is Johnny Mooney. That must be a penalty. Being inside, and this is John Guinan. John Guinan with the chance and the shot and the point. 8 or 9 metres out. And it's a good long one. It's knocked down by Kevin Kelly. That's Christy Ryan.
Latched up so far in the championship. And deflected over. Lovely point from Seamus Bowley.
The centre for Dave Barry, John Evans, and that's Tyke Murphy. Tyke Murphy, it was the number 10. It in towards the large parallelogram. John Allen, the full forward, knocked it down, and it was Tyke Murphy who got a fist to it.
Oh, yes.
The player punching is in front of his opponent. Eyes must be on the ball all the time. Contact is made with the ball by the portion of the fist between the knuckles and the joints. The player jumps as the ball passes over and with a straight arm propels the ball onwards. Players here work in rows opposite each other. One player throws the ball high to the other player, who punches it back to the thrower. They alternate at throwing and punching. In this practice, the ball is thrown low and returned with the punch. The players must be ready to expect and deal with the ball approaching them from any angle in a match situation. Players here are in lines of 3. The ball is thrown by the player at the start of the line to the player in the middle, who punches onto the third player. If the ball is punched accurately, the third player should be able to catch it before it hits the ground. The process is repeated in reverse, and each player spends time in the middle. Working in groups of 3, one player throws the ball between the 2 others. The player nearest to the thrower attempts to catch the ball, and his opponent punches it clear from grasping hands in order to prevent possession. The players may alternate again. Working in groups as in the last practice, but now the player nearer the thrower punches the ball onwards overhead to prevent his opponent gaining possession. This is similar to the last situation, but the punching activity takes place in the vicinity of the goal, thus bringing it nearer to the situation obtaining in a game. The attacker here attempts to punch the ball accurately for a score. Each player has the opportunity to punch for a score, and the competitive element can be kept in mind when each player tries to obtain the highest number of scores. This time the ball is thrown about chest high and punched over or under the bar for scores from outside the small parallelogram. The distance from goal can be increased gradually as the players become more proficient at the skill. Punching, of course, is a counter to gaining possession by opposition. Punching may be used to direct the ball into the hands or path of a teammate to prevent the opponent from gaining possession, or as a surprise move to catch out the opponent.
No, you're all right, Father. Very good.
The player punching the ball, Kevin, is behind his opponent. Eyes must be on the ball at all times. He makes contact with the ball with the portion of the fist between the knuckles and the joints, or with the area used in the fisted pass, that flat surface formed by the front of the fist. The player jumps up and punches the ball to prevent possession by his opponent, but care must be taken not to place the non-punching hand on the opponent's shoulder. This is a useful skill to prevent a better positioned opponent from gaining possession.
Tommy Conroy is in the Dublin attack. Centre half forward, Richie Connor. Matt Connor was fouled, surely that was...
Useful themselves. There are too many helpless people.
The supporting foot is placed alongside the ball, and the body is bent low over the ball. Both hands are spread in front of the ball, while the other foot moves forward underneath the ball to lift it into the waiting hands.
Yeah.
Players here are in pairs. The first player picks up the ball correctly, drops it, and runs behind the player partnering him. The other player repeats the actions and continues the movement for the whole length of the field. Using the whole length of the field for this particular practice serves to emphasize the fact that the size of the grid for any particular practice is determined by the skill being learned. It will be necessary for a player in a match situation to approach the ball from various angles and lift it correctly. Foot lifting a moving ball, which approaches from a number of different directions, helps prepare the player for a real match situation. Players here are again in pairs. The leading player is to the front of the other player. At the sound of a whistle, the leading player sprints to a stationary ball 10 meters away and attempts to foot lift it while under pressure from the other player. The players again may alternate.
Upstairs Newton, this is Seamus Boner, the Green Pimpernel, as it were. Very nicely tapped up there by by Paul McGilligan. That's Willie Joyce. Nicely chipped up there by Mikey Sheehan over the bar. Oh, a mighty he chip up, reminiscent of the late Cody, the way he got that ball, see the way he tipped it up in running and then sent it over the bar to score his fourth point of the...
Okay. That's an excellent one. That was a great one, yeah.
The player is running at speed. Eyes on the ball all the time. The supporting foot is placed to the side and behind the ball. The toe of the other foot is jabbed under the ball and this chips it into the outstretched hands.
The chip up should not be used in dry conditions. It's more or less a skill that should be used in wet weather. The advantage of the chip up is that you're getting the ball, you're chipping the ball up in full flight and that you're not slowing down. In normal pick-up you have to bend down, you have to go down, slow down when you come towards the ball and pick it up. But in this skill it's a big advantage to a forward, especially if he's at full flight, that he just can chip up the ball and keep going at the same speed and not alternate speed at all.
Rarely is this unique and traditional skill witnessed in Gaelic football games, even at the highest level. A soft surface makes the execution of the actions involved quite easy to perform, though hard underfoot conditions, as was the case when these actions were recorded, make the execution of the skill more difficult for some players. However, persistent practice improves every performance. The competitive element is introduced here to pressurize the player who is chip lifting. Young lads in particular feel a greater sense of satisfaction when they succeed in performing this skill well.
Kerry so quickly. This is Dennis Allen coming way over from the right. Oh, look at the speed of Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen with the point. That was magnificently done. Now that will lift Cork.
The chip I'd always consider a kind of a cheeky thing on the field, but I think players and supporters alike, I suppose, really kind of turns them on a bit and entertains them. So I think you want to be basically a cheeky person to do it, or else you'd want to be about 6 or 7 goals up. If you're not cheeky, I don't think you'll get away with it, because you have to have total confidence when you're doing it, and you have to be coming into the ball at speed, and when the ball is rising you have to be taking it at speed. This is the most important thing. Obviously eye on the ball all the time and adjusting your feet before you come up to it, but that should be a thing that comes naturally. It's not a thing that you probably think about. But as I say, if you're the type of person that's confident or even cocky, I think you'll get away with it all right. But if you don't feel truly confident in it, you're not going to get away with it.
Before Michael Creedon, he doesn't, and Michael then.
Yeah.
The ball is dropped from both hands to the laced part of the boot. The toe of the boot is turned up on making contact with the ball. The ball is tapped upwards towards the hands. Eyes must be on the ball all the time during the downward and upward movement of the ball.
Very good.
To my mind, the solo run is one of the great skills of Gaelic football when used in its proper context. I think the main problem with the solo run is that it's often overused. The 3 great benefits of the solo run, in my opinion, are: number 1, When a player gains possession, it gives him an opportunity of dwelling on the ball, which gives him an opportunity of playing the ball away positively. Number 2, having gained possession and when the opportunity